For those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Hannah Capaldi. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm about 5'3", white, wearing all black, and a green stole, and it is my pleasure to serve this community as the Minister for Faith Formation. Mother's Day is a big, weird one. I'm so happy to be a mom, but also, it's not the biggest part of my identity, yet, or maybe ever. Livia and I will always have to share the day, and that feels fine. But yesterday I noticed that there's no way to get breakfast in bed for like a decade. When the kids can use the toaster oven and the stove completely without supervision. And I'm learning to embrace the ways that mothering is not exclusively about being a mother. Alice von Hildebrand writes, "You are called to motherhood right now. Not next week, not next month. I am absolutely convinced that God has placed people in your path and called you to motherhood. Your task is to love those who are weak, unhappy, and unloved. Sometimes you can do this just by saying one word, and at other times, you'll just have to listen. And so today I invite you to listen, because we know and we value, we believe faithfully as Unitarian Universalists that diversity of thought, diversity of experience, it gets us closer to that divine truth with a capital T. There's no way that one person's sermon on motherhood could get us very far. And it always falls on a Sunday, so I will spend the rest of my professional career grappling with this one. So I have invited 3 of our lay leaders to share reflections today on motherhood for them, in the hopes that weaving together different stories, lifting up different ways to mother, we might all feel called, and we might all feel loved. So happy Mother's Day, however you share. I invite you to listen now.
Good morning, First You.
Good morning.
Thanks. Happy Mother's Day. My name is Deborah Agner-Hartranft, and my pronouns are she and her, and today is my wife and my first Mother's Day. Thank you. Our son Archer is 7 months old. As a point of visual access, I am a white woman, almost in my middle age. I am. I'm about 5'5", although I slouch a lot, you know. I'm wearing a gray nursing shirt and a blazer, and I got short brown hair. It's disheveled a bit. I look visually exhausted. For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a mother. I've worked with children since I was a child myself. I've been a nanny twice, once to a newborn, again to a toddler, and I've worked in church nurseries, after-school programs, summer theater programs, vacation Bible school, bilingual elementary schools, and so much babysitting, So, you know, I thought I was ready. And okay, I was ready. I was ready for all the poop and the vomit and the rocking and the caressing and the coos and the cries, and I was ready for the teething and the slobbery kisses and the pinching and the biting and those sneezes right in the face and the snot on everything. I was ready. I was ready for him. What I wasn't ready for was me. I was not ready to fully dissolve and transform into something unrecognizable. I wasn't ready for the intensity of my emotions, such unbelievable highs and festering lows. I wasn't ready for my eyes to pop open, no matter the hour, at every single sigh. I was not ready for the sleep-deprived me. To not be able to go back to sleep even after he's back down, worrying if he's too hot or too cold, almost dozing off just in time for him to sigh again. I was not ready for that neuroses. I wasn't ready to not be able to pronounce mastitis. I wasn't ready to be annoyed at my oversupply of milk, leaking everywhere, painfully engorged, and simultaneously to count every single ounce pumped, overwhelmingly anxious, wondering if it's enough, if I'm enough. I was not ready to hate breastfeeding, only to now look at him while I'm nursing and think, oh, I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss this. I wasn't ready for all the unsolicited advice or to passionately hate anyone who tells me to simply sleep when the baby sleeps. I wasn't ready to long for some distance, only to be absurdly desperate to keep him close the moment I got my space. I'm immensely grateful that he's safe and happy with my wife while I'm at work, and this puts my heart at ease, but I was not ready to be jealous of their time together. I wasn't ready to miss my wife. I wasn't ready to feel lonely. I was not ready to still be in pain 7 months later, or for the PT I don't have time for. I wasn't ready for the doctors to dismiss my pain, only to reassure me that my scar would fade. I wasn't ready for people to congratulate me on losing weight, but not ask me how I'm coping. I was not ready to be writing this at 3 a.m. I'm hungry, and I wasn't ready to be hungry because there's no food in this house. I thought, between Trista and me, that I would be the chill mom. I envisioned myself, the relaxed mom, sitting back, watching my kid climb a tree, scrape a knee, like he's a kid, let him ride the bike, it's no big deal. This is what I thought I would be like. It has been strange coming to terms with not being that mom. I am the mom whose heart races when he moves from seated to tummy. I don't recognize myself. I want to pad the entire world to keep him safe. I wasn't ready for the way my entire body would fill with a desperate electricity at the sound of his cry. I wasn't ready for the consuming need to soothe him at all costs, fighting the urge to snatch him from my wife's arms when he starts to fuss. I wasn't ready to fight myself like that. In her book, Mother Brain, Conaboy describes becoming a mother as the wholesale remodeling of synapses and neural activity. She states that we are all, in a very real sense, remade by parenthood. And I was not ready to be remade. I'm not quite sure when this remaking will be complete, or if I'll eventually emerge from this cocoon of a process, a beautiful, fully formed mother. Maybe that's not how it works. Maybe the process is never complete. And maybe being ready isn't the point. Maybe all I need to be is present.
Amen.
Let's see if I can make it through this. I was born on Mother's Day 38 years ago. In fact, my mother always called me the best Mother's Day present that she could have asked for. And while that may have been true, quoting that back to her as a substitute for actually buying her a present never worked. So 38 years ago, I was born on Mother's Day. The story goes, my mom was making a pan of macaroni and cheese, her favorite, bending down to the oven when her water broke. She was rushed to the Naval Hospital of Philadelphia. It no longer exists. Later that night, early the next morning, when the labor was complete and successful, my grandmother brought the pan of macaroni and cheese to my mom. Her, my dad, and everyone else assembled feasted and celebrated while digesting the news of Osage Avenue that eventually escalated into a firebombing, developing in real time, no more than a couple of hours away. Life comes at you fast. And sometimes it introduces itself to you by kicking you in the teeth. I was born the day of the move bombing. My mom was 21 at the time. I was her second child, her only and her first son. But being the youngest of 4 girls, my mom had been raising kids for all of her life. She'd been raising her sister's kids while she was still a kid. It was 1985. Ronald Reagan was president. Trickle-down economics had only brought crack and violence to the hood, filling the gaps that white flight had left. Black Philadelphians had just survived, those lucky enough to survive Frank Rizzo, and proved this by electing Wilson Goode, the first black mayor. In Philadelphia, the birthplace of American obstetrics, was leading the country in black maternal mortality deaths and poverty. Black babies were born. If they were lucky enough to survive, they were gifted poverty. Black boys were targeted if they were lucky enough to survive, and black neighborhoods were under siege. The war on drugs turned my childhood street into the front lines, and black girls were taught to smile and be strong. And so my mom smiled, and my mom was strong. My family grew up in Strawberry Mansion, North Philadelphia. My earliest memories are of eating crabs at the beginning of every summer on the stoop on our front steps, playing hopscotch in the streets, and drive-by shootings. I learned to check my sisters for bullet exit wounds before I learned how to tie my own shoes. You won't feel the bullet because your body will be in shock. So look for blood. Check each other for blood. I remember my mom's frantic instructions. When they start shooting, run into the first house you see. I don't care whose house it is. Run into the first house you see. Get on the floor. Wait 5 minutes after you hear the last gunshot and call home to let me know you're alive. We, my family of 6, spent every major holiday huddled in the one bathroom in our 2-bedroom home. It was the only room in the house without windows, far enough in the inside so that way when people celebrated by shooting guns into the air, bullets would not reach us. My mom smiled and she was strong. I was in high school, finally imagining that we've survived the hood, we made it out. The first family living in our northeast Philadelphia neighborhood. And while all the white families around us were moving out, the neighborhood was changing, we would always hear. We didn't realize that we were the change. One night, my mom came home and told us that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She was 35, it was stage 3. Black women don't get mastectomies early enough, and when breast cancer is caught fast enough, it's usually later in stage. The cancer is usually much more aggressive, and the treatments are much more aggressive. My mom smiled and she was strong. She lost her breast, she lost her hair. We eventually lost that house. The cancer disabled her and made it impossible for her to work. My dad had long found a new family and abandoned us. But my mom was strong, and she smiled. To be clear, I am not a mother. I am a cisgender, gay black man. I am 6 foot, I am bald-headed, and very much not a mother. So any truths that I'm able to glean about motherhood are all counterfeit and shown through the prism of my own particular patriarchies. So if I have access to any truths about being a mother, about being a black mother, about being the mother of black children, it is that this world has to offer more than just being strong.
Amen.
To usher black life into this world is to create space for Black love when that space has often been denied to you. It is to bring children into a world obsessed with Black death. My mom offered us her strength, and she was a formidable teacher. Metastatic breast cancer eventually took her. My mom died with borderline personality disorder. Therapists would also call that like being addicted to love, because borderline personality disorder is a love addiction. It comes from when you have so much love to give and you're faced with a world that has none to give back. She left us her strength. And on this Mother's Day, I pray that we can destroy a world that calls for Black girls to be strong before we ask for them to be whole, where we ask mothers to sacrifice all that they are in the name of a motherhood that they may themselves have never have touched or have been touched by. And as we come together and worship this day, I'm joined in a giant sea of other people feeling and believing and worshiping like I do. And together we can create a world that can hold strength and not use it as a guard against vulnerability. Where we can call mothers to be strong and vulnerable. Where my mom could have left us with her softness as much as this world required to leave her strength. Thank you.
What an honor to speak after you two, and what an honor to be invited to share today. My name is Amy. I am a white woman, medium height, short brown hair, wearing black, definitely middle age. And for those of you who are a little reluctant about that, let me tell you, middle age is fabulous. I remember sitting in the pews 15 years ago, knowing I was about to become a mother. My oldest daughter will turn 15 on Tuesday, and I'm a mother to an 11-year-old as well. I always wanted to be a mother, like you, and I always assumed I would have children. I didn't get around to finishing my PhD and finding a partner until my mid-30s. And I had my first indication that motherhood would not be easy when I ran smack into the reality of infertility. I was far from alone. Infertility affects about 1 in 5 people with a uterus, but it's just not something people talk about. So rather than beginning motherhood with the triumph of creating and birthing new life, I was overwhelmed with humility and gratitude for the gift of a child from a birth mother I had never met. And 15 years later, I still struggle with the complexity of being a white person, having adopted a black child. The loving personal choices made by my daughter's birth mother and by me were clearly shaped by the cruel forces of colonialism, white supremacy, and anti-black racism. I also had lots of experience playing, babysitting, teaching young children, including cohorts of UU children in this very church who are in their 30s now, I think. But caring for an infant was pretty new to me. And while we were figuring out the eating and the sleeping and the diapering, my brain was doing this elaborate rewiring to enable a whole new level of multitasking. I imagined I was well prepared for the toddler and beyond stages, and so I waited for parenting to get easier. What I didn't know was that somehow this beautiful little child had secured a list of all of my weaknesses and began challenging me in ways I never could have imagined, literally bringing me to my knees, feeling broken and inadequate at times. It took time for me to understand that I had to parent the child I had, not the child I imagined, and not the child that I was. And with time, I learned to dig deep and heal quickly, inspired by the starfish that can grow back lost limbs. And when it felt just too hard, my dear friend Phyllis Belk, not sure if you're with us today online, Phyllis, my dear friend Phyllis Belk offered words of advice. Sometimes you just have to love each other through it. Kids do everything they can do to test us, and when they feel safe, they often test their moms the most. Can I get an amen from some of the moms? That was true for me as a teenager. Mom, I love you. Our kids have the same insecurities we have as adults that we heard about last week. I am not worthy. I am not enough. I am not lovable. You can't possibly love me after I did that. And for me, being a mom has meant learning to separate the challenging behavior, and there's been plenty of that, from my child, and saying unequivocally, you are worthy, you are enough, you are lovable, and I will love you no matter what you do or say. I'm going to fill both of my children with inordinate amounts of mama love, the way my mother filled me. That's the best protection I can imagine for this often cruel world. I've always loved other people's children. I loved having the kids up here today. I feel like it's a gift to be able to connect easily with kids I don't know and send a flash of love to them through my eyes or with a smile or a wave. And I'm convinced that when we can love all children the way we love our own children, we can tackle big problems like poverty and gun violence. But my children have helped me to understand that my generosity towards other kids can sometimes feel like it comes at their expense. Someone told me that parents of adoption should answer questions from other people about adoption the way your children need to hear the answer, not the way the other people need to hear the answer. And by extension, I think this means listening to our children and what they need and not necessarily doing what we think is generous or noble. I relearned this lesson just this past week as a baseball coach. My 11-year-old son was gracious enough to accept my apology. I hold many identities: daughter, sister, wife, teacher, Unitarian Universalist, and I am a mama bear. Proud, fierce, scared, insecure, grateful, stumbling, joyous, humbled. This congregation has supported me in my mothering from the time we first considered adoption, and I am so grateful for that. I come here to be challenged and loved and affirmed in my ongoing efforts to be the mother my kids need me to be. Amen.
I want to invite us to the Amen refrain. We'll sing it 3 times as a thank you and a blessing for all that you have shared with us today, the 3 of you. Amen. 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 2 more times. Amen. Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, And you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.